Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, I actually bought the Katana 50 Mark II. Now this is not the brand spanking new one I rented a few days back. This is actually a used one. So when I went into Long McQuaid the other day, I actually rented a Hughes & Kettner Spirit of Rock, which I'm thinking about buying it. I don't know why. I mean, I only got like how many amps? Like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 amps right now, somewhere around there. Wait a minute, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 6 amps. Oh no, 7, the Marshall. 6 of which are mine, but number 7 will be the Spirit of Rock if I do decide to buy it. They're only $300 for the heads, so no biggie, right? I was actually looking for a tube amp because I had a collection of stuff that I've been going through, and I found out I got a whack load of freaking tubes for a tube amp. And I'm like, those would all work in a Hughes & Kettner's, you know, Tube Meister 18, for example, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's $400, and then, you know, these are $369 brand new for the Katana, and you get a lot more for your money. Including, it is a very clean sounding amp on the clean channel, which we'll get to in a minute. But even though I did do a demo on this amp already, I thought let's demo something that somebody's already beaten on too, right? But this was on for $300, and I thought, well, wow, that's even more offerings than the Spirit of Rock for the same money. And so I had this used one, and it's in cherry condition. So I'm kind of like, well, all right, I'll buy it. So I bought it. Didn't bother to rent it. I just thought, all right, I've already rented it. The Katana 50 is nice. It works great in the room here. Now I'm on the 25 watt setting right now. I've got the volume at full, but I've only got the master about maybe 830, and the gain is actually at 12 o'clock, so it's not too shabby. Now if we turn that to the 50 watt range, very noticeable difference. Let's go to the half watt. Now these are perfect amps, guys, especially when you're looking at being in an apartment. You don't want to tick off, well, if your landlord lives upstairs, or if you even have neighbors, period, you don't want to tick them off, but you also want that retention of tone. The Katanas will retain the tone really well. So if I even bring this up, so there's about 9 o'clock. You know, so let's go 25. And then we go to the 50. It gets excessively louder, and when you're pretty close to it, you're going to get some feedback, obviously, but so it's got a nice power soak to it for that half watt range. It's great. And you will notice, like, you know, it retains, I would say, about 95% of its tonal characteristics between the half watt range right on up to the 50, right? Now they do have the Mark II 100 watt. I've had a couple of those, and you know, I was kind of like, I'm a hard guy to please when it comes to tone. So it's kind of like, well, I've got this, I've got the Spirit of Vintage hooked into my MKII, works perfect, I'm loving it. You know, the Rock, it's a little uncontrollable to a certain point, even just by itself, because they do put out a lot of power, right? They're rated for 25 watts at 8 ohm, about half of that at 16, and at 4 ohms, you're putting out like 50 watts. Like, they're loud and they're nice amps, right? But you do have to have a cab, obviously, right, with these heads. But with the Katana, it's all built into one. And these are great in band situations, especially playing in a bar. This thing is more than loud enough. It's going to keep up with the band way too easily. If you can't keep up, then you need to change something. I don't know. But 50 watts out of a 12-inch speaker is a lot of horsepower. And being an open back enclosure, You can tilt it too and change the sound and tonal characteristics by tilting it, putting it on a stand, etc. Now I don't have any room for amp stands in here anymore, so I'm kind of like just sitting it right here. It's sitting on top. It's kind of going between my MPEG bass amp and my trainer cabinet, but it works, you know, like. And of course you've got all the Boss pedals built into this, so you know, even if you're looking at individual pedals for another outfit that you have, you get to at least sample them all here too and find out what you really want and need for your main gigs. Leave this at home even as a practice amp, or you know, program the settings to do your gig for the night. Program your settings and away you go. You can use the FS series foot switches with this, which will allow you to rotate through your settings. But you can't use the GFX foot switch, like the big one. You can't use that on here, but you can use the dual foot switches that Boss makes. They work really well. I've got a homemade little combination of a machine that I put together myself, so I don't need to buy it. And it's only going to allow me so much flexibility, so it's kind of like, well, you know, and even with the 100 watt, I never bothered with foot switches because, you know, I'm in here in the studio, that's where I mostly use it. But this is a great amp for having more effects built in, especially on the go kind of thing. It works fantastic for that. You can run an acoustic guitar in this. It has an acoustic preamp, so it switches the preamp circuit over so that it can accept without causing any issues and give you really good sound quality with an acoustic guitar running through this. Something you can't do on a regular amp and get good sound. You normally have to have an actual straight out acoustic amp. This takes the place and gives you the best of both worlds too. So fantastic. So anyways, let's get into some clean tone here. Now for this, I definitely want to bring it up to around the 25 watt range. Now I'll go to the neck pickup. Now there is also the Boss acoustic pedal built into this, so that you can make your electric guitar sound like an acoustic to a certain degree. But I think they're a great little machine. I played on the Mark I, and there's something between the Mark I and the Mark II. I think that the Mark II actually sounds better than the Mark I of the 50 watt. Now it may just be things playing tricks on me, but there's an audible tone difference to me, right? But anyways, I wasn't overly impressed with the Mark I 50 watt when I tried it out, and I do have a video on that on my channel, and putting it up against my 100 watt, and because I've had the Mark I in the 100 watt as well. But I find with this one tonally, it's actually more pleasing for the Mark II series. And for those of you running Mac OS, on an M1 system, I do have two M1 computers, and I actually set up the software on my MacBook Air because that's where I wanted it. And the driver support works perfectly fine on the M1. Same with the program, etc. Hassle-free, so go ahead, feel free. Program your amp on your M1 Mac, no big deal, or also on your PC. So that's not a problem there. So software compatibility, we're right up there and up to date. And I did have to update the firmware because the person who had originally bought this did not update the firmware. And that's kind of something that you really should be looking after whenever you buy any gear that is capable of firmware updates. Make sure you do go through the instructions to check to see if it was done. There are procedures that are different for everything. And if it hasn't been according to whatever you get for results, do the firmware updates. Get that stuff up to date because that clears out bugs. But in the case of the Katanas, in this case, not only does it clear out bugs, it also gives you more access to more effects, because Boss will give us more effects as well from time to time to add into our collection in there. So that's fantastic. Gives us a lot more flexibility with the system. So I've yet to do all the programming on this to where I want it, but I'm going to get there. But I thought I'd let you guys know that I actually did buy it. I'm happy with it. And I am going to keep it because there's just something about the katanas. You got to have a katana in your house. I mean, regardless. I mean, I don't think I'd ever get an Air again. And my wife has a Mini, so I don't need a Mini. And besides, that's hers anyhow. But I don't need the 100. It is way too overkill for in here. Way too overkill. Even the 50 watt can be a little bit, you know, overkill. But if I keep it on the 25 and half watt range, it's going to be more than adequate for in here. And if I ever do start playing live again, well, I've got 50 watts and I can crank her up. So that's not a problem. But anyway, do check one out. Go to your local Long McQuaid if you're in Canada. Or Cosmo, I think Music sells them as well. Amazon, of course, I'm sure you can find them there. Guitar Center if you're in the States. Many, many places. Anywhere that carries Boss is going to carry these amps. And Boss actually came out with bass amps too, but I'm really not interested in one of those. I'm not that good of a bass player, so I'm sticking with my cheap little Ampeg amp. That'll work for me for my uses. But anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.